Welcome to another episode of the Scrumptious Woman. And with me, I have a very scrumptious Michael Edwards. I am so pleased to welcome you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I am so excited that you're here too. I mean, I have a few men that come on the podcast, and because you always have just such juicy, amazing things that I think women, men, whatever gender you identify with, you have so much knowledge and so many codes in you that get transmitted just by listening.
Yes, thank you. And I know as I felt this conversation coming, I was like, ooh, the sacral chakra energy. We get to talk about this and unlock it.
I love it. Tell me, Michael, I don't even know what you call yourself these days. I know that you have a very broad knowledge of subjects and skills that you help people with, but what is it that you really touch upon now? What's your little Midas touch?
Yeah, I love it. I also feel like I don't know what I call myself now, which is
Right.
perfect. But I think, and it's interesting that you asked because I've really been honing in on this recently. I feel like it all comes back to authenticity. And I feel like we hear that word sometimes and we think about it as like a personality trait, but I'm talking about real,
Mhm.
authentic energy, like your soul's deepest, highest truth fully expressed as who you are, and all the things in life being a byproduct and kind of flowing out of that central point. So, authentic success, authentic relationships, an authentic way of living. And it sounds so easy to say on the surface, but we have all of these subconscious and little energetic things where we filter ourselves and we self edit and we self limit and we buy into these collective things that say, I've got to be this way or I can't be that way. And I'm talking about, I mostly work with people who are really thriving in a lot of ways, but how much more is there? How much more you is there in there that we can fully be in every now?
I love that. And it's so funny today. I had my daughter come up from London for a few hours. Um, and I'm like, oh, shall I wear my little fur? I'm like, oh, of course. Look who I'm having on the podcast. He would absolutely love that. And I was telling her about my friend that was here this weekend, and she saw me have a cup of coffee with my cappuccino, my foam on top, exactly in the cup that I like, and like chocolate sprinkles and spices and a silver spoon. And she like, I just love how extra you are. And at first I was like, oh, like a little clenching. I'm like, oh, like, no, yes, I am extra. And I've worked really hard on being this authentic and being myself. And I
Yeah.
just thought you would so appreciate that.
And it's like extra to who? Extra
I
through
know.
what lens? You're like, to me, this is just the truth. This is just what I'm feeling.
Completely. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to really notice. Like we've been honing down. I've been honing because it's like, okay, let's hone even deeper because we're very broad people that can help. I know that you do a lot of quantum healing. And I think you started also with RTT and with hypnotherapy and with all of that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that we can help with. But it's like, what's the bit that really turns us on? And what's the bit that's so much fun to just see people all of a sudden shine? And for me, it's like, I'm a touch expert. Not only do I bring
Mm.
yourself back in touch, and I'm not talking about sexual touch. Yes, I can do that too. But it's like, let's get back into touch with like your self touch and how you're touched spiritually. How extra can you be in your cup of coffee or your bottle of electrolytes or whatever, right? So it just brings you joy, and that then spreads out to everyone else.
I love it. Being so immersed in the moment and connected to all the things and like the pleasure, treating life like an altar is what I call it. And I love this is a major theme for me too. And it's so funny. I feel like sometimes we hear this and it sounds like a neat idea, but actually living that, like getting immersed in these sensory, visceral experiences it's so important, isn't it?
It's interesting. I have these cards. I call them the art of scrumptious living. So the whole scrumptiousness came from being censored on Facebook and on Instagram because I use sensuality and pleasure too much. So I got in Facebook and Instagram jail. So I said, okay, so what's the thing that sounds like it and that it's just visceral? And I'm like, scrumptious. So that's how the Scrumptious Woman was born. But then everything else I do, or a lot of other things that I do, is the art of scrumptious living. One of my other daughters, I've got twin daughters and two boys, and one of them is in Lebanon, and they love playing with the cards. They're in their 20s. She was trying to explain, what does scrumptiousness mean, Mommy? So it's like, can you put something in the cards? I'm like, it's every moment that we're in that chi, we're in that orgasm, we're in that beautiful flow of life where it might be grief and it might be extremely painful, but yet you see the beauty in it and you can taste it, you can smell it, you can feel it, you can be so deeply connected to it. And then I'm like, oh, now we get it. Okay, this is cool. Yes. But it was just that they hadn't understood what I was trying to say there.
I don't think you understand it until you start to live it. And then you're like, oh, right. And it's interesting that you mentioned grief because I actually just went through a breakup that was really painful, actually. So many people were saying to me, like, it seems like you moved through this really fast, which I didn't feel like that, but other people said that. And they're like, kind of like, how did you do that? And I was like, well, I applied all my tools. And they were like, well, what did that look like? I fucking felt it. I felt it. I sat with the depths of all of that feeling. And I was just so present to it. It was a really interesting moment because I think we have these moments sometimes where you can suddenly, it's like you get a new window and you can look back and see retroactively how much you've changed and grown. And I could really see it in that moment because there was a past version of me that would have wanted to go into story, that wouldn't have wanted to admit, because I was rejected, that wouldn't have wanted to admit that, like really admit it, ego to myself. And I did. I just sat with it and it was like, I feel heartbroken right now. And I just felt it. But then it was like exactly what you're saying. I was like, how beautifully heartbroken can I be? Like all the Taylor Swift breakup songs on, like tears, feeling it, but like being so present to my inner world and just that experience of life without judgment, And every time it came up, I was like, here you are. It's almost like a child. You're like, let me just be with you. And then there comes this time and you're like, okay, I've moved through the majority, not all of it, but the majority of that feeling. And I think we're so afraid sometimes, and I could go on about this forever, but I think it's an echo of the past. It's from when we're young and we like there was a time we couldn't process that intensity, right? But like as adults, it's like there's so much. It's almost like putting the gloves on. It's like if your soul's in your human suit, it's like when you've got ski gloves and you're not quite in all the way to the tips. It's like, can we be all the way into that deliciousness of life?
It's a big deal, right? I mean, my brand is called Feel Fully You, and I've had to really like live that the last few years. Where yesterday it was actually the 9th anniversary of my sister's passing, and I woke up and I had a VIP client here still, and I brought her to the station. I was like, I was feeling some grief. We'd done some massive work the day before. And I was just like, okay. And my body already recognized the date or just, just recognized the state I was in. And then I looked at the date. I'm like, of course it is. So I was also really kind on myself yesterday. I had already booked in a massage, consciously knowing that it was a state. But obviously I didn't know because otherwise I wouldn't have booked that. And it was just so beautiful. I had a call at 7 o'clock. I just took in the bath. authentically me since, that's is how we do things. It was beautiful. I went to bed, felt really beautiful. I'd had all my tears. I'd connected with my nephew and niece, my brother-in-law, and just remembering what a beautiful soul she was and how grateful I am to be able to feel all of this and have had her in my life for so long. And it's like, and this is what you do, right? When you process that grief. Last week I did a presentation on grief for a Light Leaders Path, and I've had two or three people that I helped through a lot of grief last week. So this week and last week seems very much we're in the grieving state, plus what's happening in the world at the moment. We are
Mm.
grieving, but doesn't mean that we only need to be sad, right? We just get to access all of it. So I love that you say that you just like got into it and like really delved into it. Beautiful.
And then the gifts, of course, right? Because it was interesting because I declared, that I was ready for love and that I was calling that in. And then he showed up and it was like I popped him out of my journal and I was like, perfect. I always say to my clients, you're going to get the thing or you're going to get the lesson that you need so that you can get the thing. And so once I moved through the grief, I started to be like, okay, why did my highest self, why did God, the universe, whatever word you want to use, why did it send this to me? And it's like, oh, well, obviously, because this experience illuminated the ways in which you were still willing to self-abandon. And to have that love, the one that you're actually calling in, you've got to work on this internally. And so, this whole experience brought to the surface something that is invisible in my normal day to day. So it was actually a beautiful gift because it was an opportunity to like really face and work on some of these things that are just kind of invisible and in the background unless they're brought to the surface.
Thank you so much for sharing. Will you let me
Yeah.
pick that back a little bit more or go into that a little bit more?
Yeah,
Because I
let's do
think
it.
the self-abandonment piece is so important and that we often don't recognize that we're doing that. And I
Mm.
hear women speak about it. I don't often hear your man's perspective of this and how you went through it and how that showed up for you. What are two or three of the things that we can learn from that, right, as listeners?
I relate to everything energetically first. So the thing that I was aware of is that I was getting pulled or I was letting myself be pulled out of the center of my field. It was relate to the center of our field as like if you imagine a hurricane or the tornado from the movie Twister. We all remember that when it goes over them and it's all beautiful and peaceful for a moment. It's like the eye of the storm. It's like in the center of our field is peace always and every now, no matter what's happening. And it's our center and it's our power and things we get hooked into things that we sort of outsource that power to, which is really an illusion. You sort of get pulled into it. And so, on reflection, I could feel that energetically, I was just leaning into that and I was out of that center of my field. And in terms of habits, I think it was just like too much focusing on the relationship. Like it became the central focus of
Mm.
my mind and my life force energy instead of myself and then overflowing to the awareness that this beautiful thing has come in to add to it. It's like subtle, right? It's not like maybe when I was like 20 and I would have ended in this really obvious way. It was more subtle ways. I see it like energetic geometry, and it's like that's just the truth of what was going on in the geometry. And I know that he felt it. I know that that contributed to what happened. It's like funny as you're asking me this. I'm like, I've spent so much time with it. I'm like, what were the things, Michael? They're so subtle and so nuanced. It's more of the internal experience at this point. It's not really one thing, but it's definitely moving into a subtle chasing energy. It's out of the identity and the embodiment of I'm the one and into the embodiment and identity and energy of pick me.
Seeker. Yeah.
Seeker. It's so interesting.
So subtle. And you're like, no, I don't have that. And then you're like, oh, hello. Oh, maybe I do have that.
I haven't really dated since I've kind of become me. Like it's been years. So I didn't expect that to still be there. But of course, it's like, when it comes to the mindset and the energy and the identity safety when it comes and the energetics when it comes to business. I'm like, oh, fear around money or this or that. And like, we got this. I've been building that for years. But then when it comes to love, it's like this whole different thing. And I almost felt like child again, but I'm like, oh, there's this part of me that I get to love and get to reparent and now get to teach this way of being that I've cultivated in these different areas, different aspects of my life.
Interesting, right? That it all comes down to safety. Safety around money and business, safety around being seen. And I love as well safety about actually being your authentic most self, like you're saying. And then the
Yeah.
little ways that we just mute ourselves, tone it down a little bit. It's really beautiful. And I think a lot of men, women, whatever you identify with, will really learn from this. And we'll also just kind of say, it's like, oh, what are the subtle ways that I may choose my relationship about myself? How often have we done it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, not say something because it's just to keep the peace.
Another big thing that's coming to mind now that actually I was so proud of, and this was probably one of the like stickiest points afterwards. I definitely recognized in the dating that he had some avoidant patterns. And then that was super interesting because I had promised myself that I would never date another avoidant like ever. And so I did clock that. But at that point, I was already in. And so I was like, oh, it'll be okay. We'll just work through it. The breakup piece basically came about because of that avoidance. And I felt his nervous system getting triggered. I was like, oh, he's for sure avoidant and he's for sure getting triggered by the closeness. And everything in me was like, just make yourself small, just like dial it back, just like withdraw from the connection. If you withdraw, he'll go back into being the chaser. And I was like, no, I promised myself I'm not fucking living with the games. And I stayed present in the connection. And then it was like within 4 days, he was like, I don't think, blah, 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 it's going to work. I think this is making me emotional. That was the hardest part in retrospect, was to not rewrite the story and say, you did the wrong thing. You should have pulled back and you should have, because I know so much about psychology and energetics and human behavior. I can see how I could have manipulated my energy and manipulated the situation to have him continue to pursue or chase. But it's like, this is the honoring. This is where I honored myself in my heart of hearts. I don't want that. I want someone that can hold all of me. When you talk about you in the fur coat, the too muchness, I'm like, I want someone who can hold like the too muchness of my heart, of the love, of like everything I have to offer, and that isn't willing to run away. And that was the thing that over the weeks afterwards, the mind wants to go and make yourself wrong, right? And I wouldn't do it. I was like, had these little fights with myself. Sometimes I was like, we're not doing it. We're not doing it, because this self-honoring is so important. And it's what we're practicing and it's what I want to live. And that's the uncomfortable, unfamiliar thing. But as you said, that's where we're creating the safety. That's what we're making familiar. And that's what we're tuning into as the foundation for relating.
Oh, you're peeling away all the layers.
I
Everything. Business,
know.
relationships, everything. It's like take that rug out of there, the safety rug, and then let's rebuild it and really creating that safety within yourself. And yes,
Yeah.
be your frigging self 100%. I was talking to someone about that the other day. It's like one of my first coaching programs, I heard, ask for what you want 100% of the time, and then stick around to negotiate. But how often do we do that? How often do we really ask 100% of what we want? I had these clients this weekend, and she was like, no, ask for 100% what you want. He may not be able to give it to you, but at least you've gotten it out.
I love this. And I think too, something I always come back to is one of my first mentors taught me that vulnerability is the foundation of all connection. The truth is it's more about getting everything on the table, right? All the unsaid thing, all the unspoken expectations and needs, like getting them out on the table And like, what's the truth? And one of the exercises that I did to kind of move through this, if everything had continued exactly the way it was in the dynamic, what does that look like in like 2 years, 5 years? And I was like, oh, well, I can literally see all the stuff that would pile up in between us that's not said because we didn't have that communication. Like I see you with your cards. Sometimes I see the clips of you on the internet with your cards and like people at cafes and these like relationship check-in questions. And I was like, we needed that. Why didn't I have Juliette's cards? I should have taken them to some of our dates. But I think it's like on both sides, you know, he definitely was not ready to like articulate like his needs or the things from his inner world. And that was one of the things that at the end I was like, we literally could have just talked about this. Like it didn't have to be a runaway situation, but I think that's what happens. It starts with being really honest with ourselves. And that's one of the commitments I think I've made to myself through this is, can I be more radically honest with myself about what my needs are and what I want? And can I be willing to voice them even through the fear of like, well, what if they're not received? What if this person can't meet them? But that's part of how we create that internal safety and just this like energetic sovereignty is, can I not be ruled by fear? Like that's something I always look for vibrationally. It's like when we're moving from, when the underlying vibration is fear, we are always going to create a reality and experience and interaction that's an energetic match for that vibrational plane, which is not going to be what you want, right? It's the energy of survival. It's the energy of just enough. It's the energy of defensiveness. It's a beautiful lesson, although it was disguised in a painful wrapper.
It's like, yeah, little shit sandwich. You
Yeah.
were yeah, little beautiful present, but wow, okay, thank you. I love how you talk about the energetics and the lack, and if we are in that fear-based energy, which, you know, if we look at the energetics, obviously it's much lower energy also, but how we then continually pull that in and where that can just be a complete train crash. And I know you talk about this with your clients and in your masterminds. Tell me a little bit, how does this work? How do people work with you? How do you, you know, you talk about energetics, you talk about manifesting, you have all these incredible tools. How do you do that with others?
I have all these trainings, these modalities and these things, but the more I've lived this, the more it's this visceral human experience. And I call it my inner circle. It's where people walk with me and we do life together. Because what I've realized is that a lot of the people that come in, they kind of know about these things. They know about vibration, they know about energetics, they know about these conceptual things. But the work is, can we live it? Can we approach life the way that I just talked about, peeling back the layers? You know that you're a spirit that came here to, you know, live this life in human form and that reality is kind of a hologram. Okay, well, what do you do with that? What do you do with that when it comes to publishing a book, to like paying your taxes, to being a parent? Like, how do you actually live from that place? And we touch on all of these things, but beyond that is an experiential thing that I think can only be lived. And if you look at, when we look at states of vibration, we talked about being in the fear vibration, there's really three spectrums. So there's like the low vibration, the shadow frequency, which is all the, you know, heavy fear, shame, doubt, guilt, grief, anger, pride, and even desire, low frequency desire from a place of lack. And then there's this middle vibrational plane, which is the gifts. It's really the gifts of the mind. It's where you have imagination and courage and neutrality. And this is where a lot of people are playing. But the top vibration in that spectrum is reason, which is the upper limit of the mind. And then into the highest spectrum is the spiritual paradigm or the authenticity paradigm. It's love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. And in the scale of the way this works, it's the spectrum from force to power. So low vibrational is force. We experience an uncooperative universe where we literally have to push against it, push blocks around in the 3D to get things to sort of cooperate or to create any kind of result. Power is we live in a cooperative universe where there's supportive, life-giving energy. what I think a lot of people look at this chart, and this is what I started to realize as I was, really becoming a student of this work more deeply myself, that people look at this work and they analyze it and they talk about it and they think about it and they say, I'm feeling love because I feel love for my family. I'm in the power paradigm. I'm in that highest spiritual paradigm. Or because, I can meditate and feel peace. But that's not really what it is. It's that we cultivate that as our internal reality, regardless of what life is giving us. It's that we become the peace. It's that we become the bliss. It's that we become the love. And as I talked about, when we live from that place, the center of our field, it flows from us in every now. It's not, let me find a peaceful environment so I can feel peace. It's, I am the peace. I am the love. And so much of it comes back to what you were talking about earlier about the experience of every now. It's so much of our attention has been sapped away by technology and the world and the busyness and like the 3D game. But actually, there's so much like this stream of multidimensional source consciousness that wants to flow through the crystal fractal of consciousness that you are in every now, and allowing yourself to live that fully. And it's like a muscle that you build, like doing squats, to stay present to life, even when life gets busy, even when you're running a multi-million-dollar business, even when you're balancing relationships and all these different things. It's easy to be like, oh, I had it and then I lost it. But it's like, but can you stay? Can you stay in the flow and the dance of life? Can you be an open channel for this source energy to move through you? And so much of the work is about living that. And it's like, just like the way we talked about, I kind of unpicked this relational thing, all these little things come up in life that are really opportunities to deepen into that, right? Oh, I got this thing came up. I got some business stress or something with my daughter and I got hooked into it. Okay, that's not a problem, but let's just look at it. What internal part of you gets to be worked on and reoriented, that you get to be in a better relationship with, so that isn't something that pulls you out of your center.
Isn't it beautiful? Right? I always think when people say, "Oh yeah, I'm all love and light and I meditate 5 hours
Yeah.
a day and this and that," I'm like, I'd like to see you in traffic. I'd just like to see if someone slams on their brakes right in front of you or cuts in front of you and takes that last parking spot where you get taken out of those vibrations. How do you respond then, right? And I mean, definitely it's taken me a while, right? I used to be a much more angry woman. And by really allowing myself to feel all of that, I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah, I look at that differently now.
It's so interesting that you say that. As you start to say that, I was like, oh, that 100% used to be me. There was a time when that was me. I was like, you know, it's almost like the spiritual identity, right? You're like the love and light, but then when maybe traffic wouldn't have triggered me, but something, slightly more intense things in life, you have these moments and you're like, oh, I'm getting pulled out of my center. But then it's like, there's this deepening of the relationship. How do I cultivate this? How do I be it? How do I live it more fully? And you kind of alluded to this in what you said, but I think one of the big differences is that it's not about going up in an escaping way. It's about going in. The wholeness is within. The truth, that authenticity, it's within. It's not being afraid of the part of you that gets angry. It's not being afraid of the part of you that feels grief or gets frustrated. It's actually about loving those parts and bringing them into the greater whole. And it's unbelievable what happens. Like I said, I feel like we have these moments. We do the work, and then suddenly we'll look back and say, just have this awareness of how far we've come. I have a woman that's in my inner circle, and she recently voice noted me, and she is funny because when she joined, she was like, I kind of know all this stuff. Like, why am I here? And I was like, just give it time. Just let yourself live it. Probably like 4 or 5 months in, and she voice noted me, and she said, she was so emotional. It made me cry when I heard the message. And she said, I just want you to know, because of the work that we've been doing in here, I feel like I'm finally playing a big enough game that's worthy of who I really am. And I just got goosebumps and brought to tears because I was like, that's it. That's the thing that lights me up. And it's like, there you are. You're just like, the truth is coming through. And it's so beautiful. Yeah, there's nothing like it.
The beauty is that to just be with them in their whole magnificent selves, and to just hold space for that so that they can get in touch with themselves a bit more. And then it's like, oh my God, it's always been there. It's like, yes, it has. And all it needed for you to see it. So it's so beautiful.
So beautiful.
I love this. Okay, so I'm going to pull a card for you. Is that okay? All right, tell me where to stop.
Somewhere in the middle. That one that's sticking out.
It's a life card. Tell me something you've held back from others.
The first thing that comes to mind is just like that experience of that relationship where I didn't communicate, right? And I feel like it was easy to go in my mind to this place of like, well, he was afraid of his inner world and he didn't communicate these deeper needs, but it's like, yeah, but neither did I. And I think that's the honest truth. That's the thing that I'm choosing to own and to rewrite.
Beautiful, thank you. Tell me one thing you would say now going into a relationship. What are your hard rule or just a truth?
It's like two things come to mind. One is really honoring all the things that I see. I recognize things early on, and I think I definitely could have initiated conversation about that and contemplation in myself. And I think the other thing is really to stay in this energy of exploration. It should be the energy of like, let's see who this person is. Do they fit into my life? They meet my emotional needs? Can they show up? And just really being sensitive. It feels like it wants to be chosen, and noticing like, is this coming online? Am I in that energy? Can I sit with it? Can I ground? Can I recenter? And not letting that energy or that part run the show.
Thank you. Exploration, curiosity is the most beautiful play of all. Michael, it has been an absolute pleasure. So authentic and so real and so straight from the heart. I've absolutely loved this. Thank you.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.